Hello and welcome to the Disruptors podcast by Fortune India, where we talk to leaders who challenge conventions and are bringing about a change in every sector they touch. Today, we have Alpana Parida, the founder and CEO of Tivra Ventures, who is also an independent director at Nestle India, Hindware, Cosmofilms, and Nexus Malls. But what makes Tivra different is its identity as an indigenous performance helmet manufacturer. But before I speak more on this, let me bring in Alpana to talk more about this venture. So, Alpana, motorcycles, helmets, riding gear in general is a very male dominated field. Uh, could you tell us more about what your experience was like as a woman trying to navigate in this sector and what were the unique challenges that you faced while building Tivra?
So I have never been defined by my gender or by my age for that matter. And I don't think it made a difference what gender, really. I think the product is an interesting product. India has the largest number of motorcycles in the world, largest population. 200cc plus bikes are growing the fastest. And there was a gap. Everything that was there was very old. I think about 4 or 5 years ago is when a lot of other brands started coming in, which were making better helmets. And that's where we thought there was an opportunity. And that's why I started Tivra.
Yeah. But were there any challenges why you started off? Because helmet making seems to be not known. Not many know about the process. So, how it was like trying to build everything from scratch? Because I think from a previous discussions where you elaborated on how you got the molds made here, and it was COVID time. So, if you could,
Yeah.
get the viewers go through the journey that you went through.
It was a difficult journey. One, we chose to do composite fiber helmets. And that is because all helmet testing in the world, including the best of standards, the European standards, which is the ECE certification, testing is done at 8.5 meters per second, 30, 31 kilometers per second, per hour. And riders surely ride faster than that, especially with the bikes have gotten stronger, they're riding at much higher speeds. The helmets that actually riders wear on motorcycle tracks, 100% of race riders, 100% will wear a composite fiber helmet. And we wanted to make affordable composite fiber helmets in India. We were aware that most polycarbonate, injection molded stuff, we used to say plastic is for buckets because they used to pass ECE, but the standards were such that they passed. But they didn't pass the race certifications. And there are riders who are routinely doing 150, 180, and then 200 kilometers when they get a highway. So we did want a helmet that could do better, and we decided to do composite fiber, really not knowing what it was. As we got involved in it, we realized that nobody really knew it because less than 1% of world's helmets are made from this material. There was a manufacturer who was making composite fiber helmets, but it was not very technologically with very savvy because they were very heavy helmets. So typical helmets are between 1500 to 1700 grams. This composite fiber helmet, which is supposed to be ultra light and ultra strong, came to us and it was about 1650 grams. And it was supposed to be a carbon fiber. And that's when we realized that it's not just material, but there's a science behind it. You have to know how to use the resin, you have to know which kind of material, you have to know what are the layers, because the layering of the material is what adds to the strength. So we moved to a composite fiber manufacturer, a manufacturer of materials from that. They were manufacturing satellites for ISRO. They had made parts of Chandrayaan. They were making torpedoes for the Indian Navy, and they had never worked with helmets before. So when we said, okay, we'll get the shells made from a specialist and we'll do the assembly with somebody who's a regular helmet manufacturer, it took us a long time to get. It took us a very short time to get a very strong shell, but it took us a very long time to get a very well finished shell. Because composite fiber has all these fibers where gases are trapped, where resin is trapped. So when you heat it, When you cure it, it has bubbles escaping. So when you have done a paint job, there are bubbles that come out. It doesn't finish as well as a fabulously molded plastic helmet comes out. And so the finishes were not so great. And our manufacturer said, when we are sending a rocket up in the air, nobody is looking at this paint finish in this micro sort of finishes. But that's what we required for helmets. So we had a struggle with finishes for the longest time. We made a very strong helmet. Eventually, we also had a struggle with scale. So we started making it, and no composite fiber manufacturer has made anything with scale because it's not required. If they're making wings for an aircraft, it's it's in a few thousands.
Yeah.
If they're making windmill turbines, it's in a few thousands, maybe a few tens of thousands, but it's never in the millions the way injection molding is done. And so we had thought, including all the specialists we'd worked with, said that, yeah, when you get to scale, you'll bring costs down. But we realized with that when we were trying to go after scale, we actually had costs going up because the resin system changed, the molding system changed, the heating times and the curing times were different. And so we were at it for 5 years. We burned a ton of money. We got a fantastic product, actually a fantastic product, which we could not afford to send for certification because when you're making only about 3,000, 4,000 helmets a year, you can't afford a certification that costs about 70 lakhs. So we couldn't get that. We couldn't get the scale. And eventually, heartbreakingly, we abandoned this specific project for Tivra helmets in December of last year. We are completely process re-engineering. We are trying some new materials. We still want to work on a performance helmet that can go much beyond a typical plastic molded helmet. So there's still trials going on. But for the moment, we pivoted to Tivra.
So, of course, it was a very ambitious venture with Tivra because you're trying to enter a market which already has brands like Steelbird, which has already a big market chunk. So, of course, you're trying to disrupt in that space through performance helmets as well. But it seems like scaling was your major hurdle. It was your Goliath, we could say. But of course, you pivoted towards Tivra, and it seems that you have not let go of your sector that is still helmets. You ventured into Tivra, so of course there might be a lot of learnings from Tivra that you're carrying towards Tivra, and while you're building this brand as well. Could you tell what were these learnings, how you are implementing it, and what makes Tivra different again?
So we certainly learned a lot about materials. We were a core team that had worked on the product design from scratch. So all the 49 different parts of the helmet, we knew exactly which screw we were using and what the of the screw was. So we really learned the product. And when we were looking at, and it's not abandoned, the trials are still going on, and we will come back to it about a year from now. It will take us that kind of time to come back. But for now, the women's helmets. So when we started looking at women's helmets, and we realized that women, we'll be lucky if they start wearing helmets because they don't wear helmets. That's one. Second is they will never wear a full face helmet, even though it's the much better helmet to wear. And we hope that we will educate them in the future and bring them towards full face helmets. But for now, we have open face. But again, the idea was to make the safest open face helmets we could. And we have, and scooter riding is at a much lower speed. So motorcycles, I know we're looking at upwards of 100. The scooter would be typically 40, 50 kilometers per hour. So for that, we were fine doing polycarbonate. So we are doing polycarbonate. That's one. Second is that when we were looking at scooter helmets, typically it's a cheap solution, because women really want to buy because it's a regulation. Nobody's thinking about saving their heads. And so the EPS, the extended polystyrene, which is the impact absorbent layer inside the helmet. That has a density which is 30 density, 35 density. So we've gone after a density which typically the best motorcycling helmets will have. So we have ensured that it's a 45 density. We also have material which is best in class. We have a visor material which is best in class, and we have a much more comfortable helmet. But we are also trying to understand why women don't wear helmets, and that's because they're ugly, they're boring, they're forced to wear them. And so the insight was that if we make helmets that they want to wear rather than have to wear, then we will not have to fight that safety battle. So that's where we are positioning these helmets as style statements. But of course, the functionality is brilliant.
Understood. It's like bringing in style along with safety, while you're also trying to educate women riders the importance of helmets, whether half face and hopefully they venture into full face. Talking about women, of course, cities tend to have stricter regulations. When it comes to wearing helmets, you have traffic police putting fines uh, on people who don't wear helmets. So what is the sort of consumer base or your target audience that you look at? Is it more city centric, or are you seeing a growing population from towns and villages trying to buy these helmets? Because I've gone through your website and I saw the pricing as well, and it's pretty good. It's not super expensive. It holds on to its functionality as well. So could you elaborate more
Yeah.
on the TG?
So it's a very approachable price point. We currently our helmets are anything between 1,700 to 2,500, 2,700. We believe that this is a sweet spot, and a lot of women spend this kind of money on products that are interesting. Unlike fashion, a helmet has much longer life. It's something you wear every single day, right? So it's definitely something that they should be interested in. Where we are struggling is that when we go to a traditional helmet dealer who have only sold on price, you go to them and say, there's a 2,000 rupee helmet, and they will say it'll never sell, um, because women's helmets have been the cheapest. And even if you can ask them, saying, okay, you come back, tell us what price will it sell, even 1,200 rupees is too much for them. So even if you say, okay, can we figure out if we can sell at 1,200 rupees, and not that we can, because we are definitely making a better product,
Yeah.
they would say, nahi, 1200 bhi mehanga hai, because they would be happier selling it for 800 rupees, which means that anybody who's selling a helmet for 800 rupees is making such a cheap, poor quality helmet. So I think, so we work with the product is ours, the design is ours, the molds are ours, the material selection is ours, the QC is ours, the supervision is ours, and we have a job working partner. That partner tells us that, madam, everybody comes to us saying that make a cheaper helmet. You're the only one who's coming and saying, give us better, give us better. Because in everything, every material, we have gone for the better. And I think somewhere that's the idea of a brand that is supposed to save lives. That make it fun, but definitely make it with integrity. And that's part of the brand.
Then you talk about how people tend to go for a cheaper variant, whereas you, on the other hand, like the way you have said, you are taking that effort to go that extra mile to make a safer product and keep it at a price point that's affordable, approachable. So, of course, that is one challenge that you're looking at. But of course, you might have stories that you are proud of when it comes to these helmets by Tivra hitting the shelves, people coming and telling you as to how good the product is. So could you tell more about it?
So before I go to Tivra, I'll give you Tivra, right? So we couldn't get the certification, and that became a big social media thing. They don't even have an ECE certification, which, by the way, is not a very high standard. And what are they talking about? So we got a lot of flack in social media that we are, because we were challenging many people. But we've had anecdotes. We've had one of our riders who was coming from Bangalore to Bangalore to Goa, and he hit a branch which was in the middle of the road head on. He went flying. His bike was went flying. It got very badly damaged. He fell. He was wearing all the gear, and he had no concussion. He got up within seconds almost. His jacket did very well in saving the rest of him. And I think we've had at least four real examples of riders getting in touch with us and saying, I've had a bad crash, but I was fine. So we knew we had a damn good product. I think when it comes to Tivra, we started about 4 months ago and we just hit the market. I wish there were more people who would come and say, you have a damn good product. But at this point, thankfully, there's been no such instance of, how the helmet has behaved in a crash. But we have a lot of women who love the helmet, and you should see our Instagram profile. There's just a lot of content out there. For a 4-month-old brand, I think we have a ton of stuff from people who are just telling us they love us. So it's a very validating feeling, and I think this is a brand that's really poised to go places.
That's amazing to hear because as a motorcycle rider myself, of course, I prefer full face helmets because it's safety above
You
style
should.
for me. But I'm also seeing a rise in population of women motorcycle riders.
Yeah.
So, just a quick question to you: would you, if you are bringing back Tivra, would you also make helmets, full face helmets through Tivra for women, designed for women, especially those who love the thrill of speed, not on roads, of course, because safety first, but on tracks and off roads? Yes.
Yes, we will. At some point of time, we will. When we started making Tivra also, so there are head sizes which are in event. So you will have a 620 head size, which is typically a large or an XL. A large is a 600, a medium is 580, and 560. A lot of helmets which were in the market would make, because there's a mold cost. So they would make one mold from which they would bring out three different helmets, right? Because the amount of EPS and the padding would change. We decided that the best helmets in the world made only two sizes per mold. So we couldn't afford to make so many molds. We made two molds. And so we had only four sizes. Women's helmets are smaller than that. And so right now, a lot of helmets which women wear are really men's helmets which are with extra padding because there aren't too many new molds out there. So we ensured that we are making it to women's sizes. We have smaller sizes. We are bringing out still more smaller sizes. We just procured a mold and we do that. So I think making them the right size is a requirement. So whenever we launch with Tivra, it will be three molds and there'll be a women's size mold also.
I really, I wish you luck with that, with both Tiivra as well as Twara. Moving on, because I know that you are a part of, you know, boards as an independent director in very well known firms and companies. So, of course, you have been a part of the scaling journey. Uh, Wherein, fun fact viewers, Alpana here is the one who named Nika our favorite one stop destination for all things beauty. So, Alpana, you have seen a brand from scratch, not just yours, but you have seen other brands coming as well. Could you tell what are the factors that make uh, an upcoming company or a brand disrupting? What are the key needs for that brand to have to change the way the sector looks at?
So I used to head marketing and merchandising at Tanishq also. Nika, very early days, I mean, even before it launched, it was an idea on Falguni's iPad, and she would often come over with her ideas. And I think mainstream brands that really want to connect need to take a stand. So Tanishq, for example, would do controversial ads. Right? There was the second marriage ad. There was an ad where a husband and wife, uh, she was, he works long hours and he appreciates how she has stood by him in all his work. And there were things that ordinary brands weren't doing. So there was one famous ad where she takes the wheel and she starts driving. So Tanishq always had that voice that the women were willing to voice. And even though second marriages might not be what a lot of women might not have in their life, or they might not even accept it, but the fact that a brand is progressive, they reward that brand with their love. And they reward progressive brands today. Very early days, Nika had an ad where there is a woman who walks into her house and her husband is supposed to be at home, and she sees this women's clothing strewn all along, and she walks into the house thinking he's cheating on her. And when she actually goes in, she finds that he's a cross dresser and he's dressing up as a woman and he's supplying makeup. And then this cuts to maybe 6 months later, where she's at a cafe and she's waiting for her friend, and then she meets her husband as a friend. So they've obviously separated, but she accepts his sexuality. And I think these were the kind of things Nika did, which again made the brand very progressive, but made people connect so strongly and emotionally with the brand. So I think the strongest brands are built when you put your emotions out there and you don't just follow the herd.
That's one way to look at it, because of course you need to connect with the audience for that brand to grow in the first place. But there's an interesting point that you mentioned, that's about being progressive, because most of these brands, I mean, if you talk about Tanishq, of course it was a brand that has already set shop for a very long time. Nika was upcoming, therefore it could take that leap of faith with the whole idea of connect. uh, are there any other factors for a brand? Could be a legacy, or it could be something that just started yesterday and they are really trying very hard to be the change in the segment where they are trying to enter.
So I think today there are a lot of disruptors when it comes to food, for example. So many food brands doing something very, very different. Um, I think fashion, makeup, they built around values, because I think a newer generation of consumers is looking for uh, not just values, but really what is the belief the brand has, and what kind of integrity does the brand have to that set of beliefs. It's not just about making something and selling. Earlier, it used to be that you made something good, and the more you advertise, the more you sold. I think today it's about more you connect, more you sell, and you can connect in with the digital medium. You don't have to spend the same amount. So you have disruptive brands that are smaller and yet can grow very fast. The whole truth, I think, as a brand has done that, has built that kind of connection and belief. So I think the consumers have changed, and the legacy brands that earlier played on legacy, we've been around for 150 years. The younger consumers are saying, "So what? We don't care.
Yeah.
What we care is what your values are." So I think that's pretty much it.
That's a pretty interesting answer. And I completely agree with you on that. And talking about disruptors, one segment that's often overlooked is, of course, kids wear. And I know for a fact that you are also venturing into it,
Yeah.
wherein you are, taking over that segment, but with a twist. So could you elaborate more on this new venture?
Yeah, we're launching a kids helmet as well. We're making sure it's very safe. We would have come out sooner if we were just making a design helmet. I think we're making sure that we're getting it right. We didn't launch a kids helmet for the longest time, actually, because I wasn't sure about the science of it. Um, are kids supposed to wear the helmet? Can they withstand what kind of tests are done? And in fact, for very small kids, there isn't even an ISI standard. There are no head forms for testing even. So we are not doing helmets for very small kids. We are doing helmets which are for older kids, 8 to 12, 12 to 16, where there are headphones available, you can test it. So we want to make sure this backed by science. But I think when it comes to understanding kids, um, you can make something, put little kiddie things or put some characters on it that you can franchise and that you pay royalty for, and then you can sell it. Um, that's the conventional way of doing it, but I think you really need to connect with the kids. And one of the things we're trying to do is to try and understand what does an 8-year-old want, and what does he does the 8-year-old doesn't want to be treated like a 5-year-old, and the 12-year-old certainly doesn't want to be treated like an 8-year-old. Right? So they are almost young adults, the kind of exposure they have. And so, how can you be ethically right and still be appealing to young people? Um, they don't want to conform. So, how can you be a rebel without alienating parents? Um, so, I think that's the kind of tightrope we are working and having a lot of fun doing it. So, we'll come out with the kids' helmets in about, we are hoping to launch on Children's Day.
Oh, that's
So, hopefully, it'll be out soon. So,
I mean, again, all the best with that. Before we end this program, one last question, Trisha. As a disruptor yourself, you entered a very male dominated sector, but you did not let gender define your journey. And at the same time, being an independent director in all these known companies, of course, you have been a part of that disruption journey for those companies as well. What would be your final thoughts, uh, or like an advice to people who want to venture out and disrupt the way we look at things in life? Could be business, could be anything.
I think the real joy that I've got is when I've done things that I want to do. It's just following your own tune. I learned very early on that I had to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's my mantra, really. When I first led an organization as a CEO, I think about 15 years ago, I knew that if I was comfortable, I wasn't doing my job. I was only doing what was normally done, whereas a CEO charts necessarily finds new paths, charts a new course. And so it's important to do that. It's important to make peace with being uncomfortable. I think that has been exciting. Doing your own thing is exciting. So that continues to be what I do. And I don't think gender is relevant here at all. It's like, the World Women's Chess Championship. What is that? It has never made sense to me. So yeah, so business, and what is that really? It's the same decision making that you would do regardless of gender.
That's actually a very good advice for people who are emerging out over there. And with that, we are coming to a close of this session. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more such exciting episodes on the Disruptors podcast by Fortune India. Thank you. Thank you, Arda.
Thank you, Tamanna. It was wonderful being here.
Same face.